who haven't been able to attend. If there's any objections, please do shout out now. If not, Sophie, I don't know if we want to crack on and hit record. Thank you. As I mentioned, any questions, do pop them in the chat. So for the first part of the session today, let me hand over to Lucy, who, as I mentioned, is the sa.global legal specialist, to give you an introduction to some of the areas around Power Platform and the benefits it can bring in terms of driving your organisation. Lucy, let me hand over to you.
Thank you. So in today's world, it's absolutely essential that users have the utmost flexibility in where and how they work. And so by being able to deploy both Evergreen and Empower within Microsoft Teams means the solution is embedded where your users will spend most of their time. The benefit, obviously, of being having it embedded is that your users do not need to navigate to other screens to execute tasks, and therefore it makes it much easier for them to collaborate not only internally with their team members, but also with their external clients. So today I'm just going to walk you through some of the examples, and the page we're currently viewing is the Microsoft Teams, and you can see very clearly that as a fee earner, I've got immediate visibility of my performance. Now, the performance that you're seeing on the right hand side is a standard set of Power BI reports that are delivered inside Microsoft Teams, and I have the ability here to be able to drill down to understand the information in a little bit more detail. So what I mean by that, in the KPI there for my fees billed, very quickly I can get to the underlying data. I can also focus in on specific areas, and if I want to sort the columns to bring the highest amount of WIP to the top, then I can do that very quickly. Simply accessing and going back through to the main page here, I've got access along the bottom to actually slice the data in slightly different views. So maybe where I have a key responsibility of a matter partner, or where I'm actually holding the responsibility of a client partner. So a number of standard metrics for me to be able to track against the metrics and targets that are applied to me as a user within the business. I also hold a slightly wider responsibility in the business, and I have a number of people within my team. So still, whilst remaining within Teams, I've got access here to the performance, in this example, of Amber. Clearly, Amber's not recorded or billed any time this particular month. So just using standard Teams functionality, I can use the chat option on the right hand side, or I could set up a meeting and actually call Amber to discuss her performance for this current month. You'll also notice, whilst remaining in Teams on the left hand side, I've got access and visibility of the clients and matters I'm currently working on. If we just expand the team for Yadam Media, you can see there are a number of channels within that area. If I select one of the channels, this allows me to access information from what we call the Matter Hub. So this is evergreen information, which is surfaced within the hub here for me to be able to identify and actually review the financial position of the matter. So at the top of the screen, we have the client details where we've got the primary address and contact numbers, but I've equally got visibility there on the other members within the firm who hold a key responsibility, whether they're the matter relationship partner or the fee earner. And again, just going with the focus on being able to collaborate easily with my peers, then I can simply use some of the links here, which is standard Teams functionality for me to be able to schedule a meeting. And in this example here, it's topped and tailed it with the 2 individuals, but I can add other invitees. And I've also here got the matter description to support the meeting. So all of that's passed across straight away from my main screen here. We then look to the right-hand side of the Matter Hub. Clearly, we can see that the matter is open. The status is shown there in orange. And then underneath that, I have my last activities, so I can clearly identify when the last bill was raised on this matter, or even when the last time entry was posted. Further down, we have financial summary, which is where I've got immediate visibility on the WIP and the debt position of this particular matter. And if all that's not enough, then I can just use one of these links at the bottom. So if I pick View Matter Inquiry, it takes me or steps me across straight into the full-blown matter inquiry, where I can then drill down into the underlying transactions on a particular file. So that was an overview there of the Matter Hub. In addition to viewing my own performance and also looking up financial information with regards to a matter, there's other key functionality that I'll do day to day as a fee earner. And so the next part of the demonstration, I'm going to step you through an example of two of our apps where we've taken or leveraged the Power App capability to provide users easy and intuitive methods to carry out a particular action. So we'll start with the Time app. So this is again allowing me to capture time whilst remaining within Microsoft Teams. When I access the app, at the top of the screen, I've got visibility on the time that I've recorded over a given period. So in this example, on Monday, I recorded 3.5 hours. I can simply drill down into that underlying data. If I want to step back to check what I did last month, I can do that very quickly by just choosing a slightly different date range. If I want to just hide that, I can just use the toggle at the top to decide whether or not I use my week summary. Now the Time app actually provides me 4 different methods to capture time. We've got timers, timesheets, quick notes, and time tracker. So we'll just walk through a couple of examples. Here I'm going to simply type in a narrative for a clock or a timer that I want to actually run. I then need to just call up or search for a file. So we're going to choose the London General file, attach an activity. So in this example, the activity will be research, and then I can create and start. Clock's activated immediately, and I can now move on and start doing the work on the London mining file. I can have other clocks running as well, and as you'd expect with any clocks, you can stop and pause and activate them again. Moving on, we have timesheets. So this is the timesheet I'm currently working in. I can add further lines by simply completing the form and saving, and that will then add that particular transaction to the existing timesheet. We then have quick notes, which is just a method for you to capture a note about an action or an interruption that's taken place, and then as and when you have the time to allocate it, you can then come back at any time and submit the time through and then pop more information in that's required. Last up is the time tracker. So the system learns the files and matters and activities you're doing on specific files. So as a quick way to record time, from here, as the list builds up, you can simply use the enter time or start timer, and the system will then activate one of those for you. Moving on from the app, I'm just going to run through another example of the Power App capability. And in this example, we've created a WorkSafe app, which enables you to book a seat within the office. So a quick run through of that, we'll go to new booking. The system knows that I normally reside within the Leeds office, but if I was moving into London, I could actually choose a different office. These are the seats that are currently available on the floor in Leeds. I'm going to select 1A, book the seat, pop in a reason as to why I am coming into the office, and simply confirm that. Now, as soon as I confirm the booking, that will automatically fire an email to confirm that booking to me. And if I just go back to the home page here, you'll see that anybody else now logging into the WorkSafe app will see that Lucy's in the office, which seat she's in, and the reason for that being in the office today. So we're now going to move to the final part of the demo, and I'm going to introduce you to the Evergreen Legal Assistant. This is the latest in bot technology, and it's embedded right here within Teams. The Legal Assistant manages both reactive work, like helping you find an invoice or maybe to record time, but it also manages your proactive work, things like monitoring key items or monitoring an unpaid invoice. So this is really where we have some fun. We can start sending off commands to the Evergreen Assistant, and from that they will read the command, come back and having understood that command, they will provide me with a card to record some time. So in here, I need to search take on the instructions for Yada Media. System will then find the file for me, select it from the top hit, and now I'm provided with a card from the Evergreen Assistant to then pop in the details with regards to the time that I want to capture. In this example, 1 hour. We then choose the category, so we'll do some planning and preparation. I'm going to make this one billable and then submit that. All of that inside Teams. The assistant fully understood my request. It's come back and now confirmed to me that that request has taken place. You can type in other commands and I'll give you a couple of examples. So we'll type in, you may have forgotten how to get into Evergreen itself. So we can type Evergreen URL and very quickly we'll get a card back, which has provided me a link to take me into the Evergreen hub. Or if you're having a bad day, we can type help and the system will come up with some useful commands to help get you started. So we've seen create time. It might be a financial requisition, open a matter inquiry, or we might simply want to search some invoices. I know people are interrupted by clients querying invoices on a fairly regular basis, so being able to actually call up an invoice or search for an invoice using the buttons at the bottom will be very useful. So if I type in the invoice number that the client is quoting, I can simply search for that detail, and the Evergreen Assistant has now provided me full details of that invoice. We can clearly see the invoice date, when it was due. We've got a traffic light indicator here, so it's advising me that the invoice is overdue. To the right hand side, we've got some key details on the matter, and then we've got the currency and the value. And if that's not enough, I can drop into View Client, View Matter, or View Invoice, where I can actually then have the document up in front of me on the screen, so I can actually liaise with the customer confidently. So with that, that concludes the short introduction to working within Microsoft Teams, and I thank you for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. That's a great introduction into the power of that connected experience with the Evergreen layer on your industry hub. So swiftly moving on in terms of the agenda today. Over the last few weeks, we've been joined by one of our esteemed customers, Field Fisher, who've talked about their journey to the cloud with Microsoft Dynamics and the sa.global Evergreen legal solution. And now I'm delighted to hand over to the second of our speakers today, Anthony Robinson, who's been the Senior Product Manager at sa.global. Anthony was instrumental in driving the successful deployment of Power Platform within Field Fisher, and will now share with you some of the ways they're leveraging the Power Platform to automate those business processes and drive operational excellence. And before I steal any more of your thunder, Anthony, please let me hand over the reins to you.
Thank you for that, Jamie. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining. So, yeah, as Jamie says, I'm Anthony Robinson, Senior Product Manager at sa.global. Prior to this, I was at DWF in Manchester for 7 years, where for the majority of that time I was Finance Systems Manager. So I was in charge of the likes of 3E, ClickView, Chrome River, Minisoft Arcs, Line Time Liberate, all the sort of things that you're probably familiar with. So what I want to talk to you about this morning very briefly is a couple of examples. First one is what we classed as called a hackathon. So we set up a whole day with Field Fisher. It was with the systems team. And the idea behind it was they would come to us with a list of business scenarios, business problems, things that they want to either automate, improve, just make better by using the Power Platform to do so. So in order to allow us to prepare for this, they sent through sort of 10 to 15 different examples of things that they would like to improve on. That give us time internally to kind of review them, analyze them, do some basic analysis and some sort of rudimentary sizing, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to plan a full day of kind of analysis, Power Platform development, and just sort of knowledge transfer and training with the team at Field Fisher. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't pick off something that's going to take weeks and weeks to build, but also something that's, you know, not going to take 10 minutes. So it's just finding that right balance of something that will fit into the day. So what we did, out of those sort of 10, 15 scenarios, we picked 2 that we deemed as being that would work well during the day. We managed to sort of do some examples first internally so that we're fully prepared for that day to allow the team at Field Fishers to get the best use out of us. So what we then did, we had a team of analysts, developers, architects, and the whole sort of premise of it, the day started off is that we looked at the 2 solutions and we talked through, giving some examples and just some hints and tips on how we as a software development team, how we get from business problem to starting development to final solution, just to give them that kind of, I suppose it's that kind of insight into how you do that analysis piece, how you sort of take it, how you make the decisions of what you do, what you use, because you're starting to use the Power Platform, you've got so many different options to help you solve those business problems, and you have varying sort of degrees of complexity. Lucy's just demonstrated a couple of examples. You've got the time app. I would class that as a fairly complex app, something that, you know, I would expect a developer to do. The workplace app, a little bit simpler. Maybe, you know, you could start getting your team could start to maybe get involved at that level. But what we looked at, we picked 2 business problems. One of them was adding categories to a matter automatically when it's open, and the other one was sending alerts for draft timesheets at month end. And we split ourselves into 2 separate teams, the Field Fisher guys into 2 separate teams. So we're all sort of on one big Teams call, separate out into 2 different teams, and then each of us would work through the scenario that was chosen. And what we did, the guys at Field Fisher actually did the work, they did the development, but we kind of had, 3 people in each team helping them make the decisions, helping them understand the technology, helping them make the right choices for what they wanted to do. So what we did then, we worked through the day, produced those solutions, and then kind of came back together as a group and looked at what each team did, presented to each other, and kind of discussed some kind of best practice, some things that we'd learned, some sort of how to sort of improve these things going forward. And everybody involved in the day felt that it was really, really successful. There was a lot of kind of that coming together, that teamwork, almost that team building that kind of falls alongside these sort of things. But from that day, they've already implemented one of the solutions. One of the other solutions, they've taken what we produced in the day and they've added to it themselves. They they've not needed any assistance with that, and they've just been able to take it further. Apologies if there's any background noise. I do have some building work going on at the moment. And then what they've also done from that, they've actually had their own internal hackathon day. So they've got together as an internal systems team, looked at some business problems and seen how they can use the Power Platform to help resolve those problems and help sort of make them easier, help just generally help make life easier for them and the people that they work with. So everybody involved from Field Fisher, from sa.global, we all felt it was a really, really successful day, and it was a really, really useful day. The second example I'd like to mention is one that's similar, but sort of a larger project. So we worked with Burgess Salmon, and what they were looking at doing, they were looking to sort of introduce the Power Platform to the company as a whole. So what they wanted was a proof of concept, something, again, similar principle, pick out a business problem, a business scenario, something that they could put into the Power Platform, and something that would then be used to show their business internally how the Power Platform could work for them, to then get them kind of started on that journey. So as this was a proof of concept, this was funded by Microsoft, they've got some proof of concept funding. And what we did there, we took the problem they had was the client request. So requesting money from the client account with COVID, this was previously a kind of a very manual exercise. You've probably all done it in the past where you're filling in different forms. Forms are then walked through the office and signed by a partner, and then walked to the team in finance, who then processed that payment. Obviously, through COVID, that all then moved on to being sent via emails and things like that. So they wanted something to improve that process. So we worked with the team very closely over a number of weeks, and we had sort of regular stand-ups with the team from Burgess Salmon to keep them involved, to also help with that knowledge transfer. And what we did there, we built a Power App that would allow the users to request the money from client. And at Burgess Salmon, they're using Adherent, so it's on premise. So we used the Power Platform to create a connector, so we're connected from the cloud to their on-premise solution, all completely secure, all used with encryption or fully encrypted connections. So we're able to read the matter details, the sort of client partner details, who to route it to. So from the app, the request was made. That was then sent out via Power Automate through a workflow, goes through all the usual complex sort of authorization, depending on how much it is, depending on which client it is, etc., etc. That then comes back to the app where the finance team have a kind of a back-end view, which allows them to automatically create the file to upload to the bank to make those payments. And there's also an upload back into Adherent at the other end. So again, it was a longer project, and it was all about sort of helping them create that solution, but there was also, we helped involving sort of knowledge transfer, helping the team at Burgess Salmon understand the Power Platform, get to know it, get to use it, and be able to sort of start to use it more themselves going forward. Again, really, really successful project, worked really well, and the whole team worked. We had a sort of small team internally. We sort of ran it as a small project because it ran over a number of weeks. But again, I think it was another really successful example of using a number of different elements of the Power Platform to solve that business problem that they had, make things easier for them, for their team. And that was it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Great insights. I think really on how Phil Fisher were introduced to the Power Platform and how they accelerated probably their adoption to push forward faster. They've made some real efficiency gains in streamlining some of their key business processes in the firm. Now, let me introduce our final speaker, who's Ollie Ward from Microsoft. He's a Power Platform specialist who's going to share really this incredible focus there is around the Power Platform and some of its capabilities. So over to you, Ollie.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning, everyone. So as Nick said, I just want to present a bit of an introduction to the Microsoft Power Platform and Microsoft's investment in low-code generally. And also, just as the other presenters you've heard from this morning, I also would like to share with you a handful of use cases and examples that we've seen from our legal clients that we've been working with. It'd be just great to get those in front of you. So, just going to start by setting out some of the challenges, and I think I'm not going to spend too long on this because hopefully a lot of these will be quite familiar to many of you on the call, I'm sure. If we think about the challenges that are kind of preventing us as firms, as organisations, but also as individuals from doing our best work in this industry, even thinking about all the technology and all the data that you have at your disposal, there's all these kind of competing pressures, both internally and externally, that are kind of strangling the ability to stay productive or stay agile and continue to deliver. For example, if we just pick up on the idea of rising client expectations, they've always been high, but typically that experience that you offer out to your clients is probably going to be a way that a lot of firms are looking to differentiate from competition, given that services and fees are quite sort of standard across the board. So being able to remain agile, continue to appear innovative, forward-thinking, and simple to deal with, always trying to catch up with those expanding and rising client expectations. There's a real need to deliver against that. If you think more kind of internally within the firm as well, what you find kind of under the hood is there's often processes that are really fractured, and that can be for a number of reasons. It can be because there are kind of non-digital processes that are taking place that are quite paper-based. But equally, you've got probably digital processes that are in place, but they perhaps span multiple platforms that perhaps don't communicate. So what we often find in legal we find in other industries as well, but particularly predominant in legal, is that a use case will be identified where there's a need for a particular platform or solution. The firm will go to market and buy an off-the-shelf platform for that specific use case, which will probably deliver an app type experience, which is fantastic for that one use case. But once you repeat that multiple times across the firm for different use cases, you end up with a kind of a varied and kind of patchwork estate where these perhaps platforms, whilst they're great at what they do, they don't necessarily communicate with each other, which then impacts productivity internally, humans having to rekey or move data or just switch between applications to complete a process as well. If we think as well around the IT and business partnership that might be within a firm, you've got the business driving IT to help them be agile, help them deliver against those rising client expectations and those needs internally. But IT, there's only so much that they can deliver centrally effectively. There is a skill shortage in terms of professional developers if you're looking to develop applications and capability in-house. Budget constraints, obviously a lot of budget has been diverted to helping firms and organisations react and respond to the pandemic over the past year as well. And also time, you've only got a limited amount of resource to actually spend time into some of these use cases as well. And the final one I'll just call out in here is that element on the bottom right-hand corner around security and compliance risks, where you have got those fractured processes that perhaps are a hindrance to people being productive within a firm or an organisation, or restrictive policies around how data might be used, etc. If those are impeding progress and agility for some colleagues, you'll find that they start to branch out and kind of try and solve their own problems. I'm sure we've all seen departmental Excel sheets and solutions of that sort of nature being passed around. But also from an IT perspective, that emergence of that kind of shadow IT where people are going out and downloading, apps that aren't necessarily provided by the firm to help them stay productive. So where Power Platform can help meet some of these challenges is effectively, if you think about how you deliver against those needs, you've kind of got three different approaches that you can take. So traditionally, there's that off-the-shelf solution, as we spoke about before. If you've got a problem, you can go to market and buy an app that specifically solves that. The other approach is to look internally at your resources to think about how can we develop or how can we configure some kind of capability that delivers that capability out to the business. But again, you've got those time, cost, and kind of skill constraints as well. And what that means is that there's probably only certain use cases that will ever get picked up by that internal delivery capability just because of those constraints. So client experience, matter management, all those kind of key things that you see within a firm are likely to fall into that pot, which then means those other fractured processes, which perhaps are elsewhere across the organisation, often are a missed opportunity to innovate, to digitize, to optimize as well. And that's where the Power Platform is a great tool to help you very quickly start to jump in and actually turn that around. So as we said before, historically Microsoft have kind of approached trying to get code into schools and colleges, trying to build kind of a large network of people interested in pro development. As we know, skill shortage internally at individual organisations, but the same is true globally. And particularly with the face of that backlog, not just at your firms, but again, globally, huge amount of work that can be automated over the next few years, huge amount of processes that can be digitised as well. There's a realisation that there's just not enough individuals globally that will be able to deliver to meet that demand. So the way we can help achieve scale globally, but again within your organisation, is to empower everyone to be able to use these low-code tools to be able to solve their own problems effectively. So that can be those missed opportunities within a firm, that can be helping IT deliver more quickly, more rapidly, more centrally, reducing their internal backlog, and just helping everyone to overall become more productive through those automations and the delivery of those apps. When we think about the audience for who might be able to work with these tools, we typically group people loosely into these three buckets. So if we think about the business, people around your firms today, these are business users, or what we might term citizen developers. These are the individuals that are closest to the problem and have some sort of desire to go and solve it themselves. So they work with that process day to day. They understand the outcomes they're trying to achieve. They understand the inefficiencies that they have today. And some of them may already be trying to solve this problem with things like shadow IT or kind of homebrew Excel platforms as well. So what we're offering to those individuals is a platform that can be put in place that empowers them to go and solve those problems, building out apps, building out automations, but with a level of security and governance over the top. So almost a kind of putting some guide rails in place where central IT and administration and data can be confident that there's nothing outside of that kind of compliance area that's happening with their data and processes as well. The second audience on there is that IT admin capability. So actually, if you adopt that platform, there's no reason why, if IT is being looked at as the partner to deliver back to the business, these capabilities can't be used to build out processes, build out apps centrally, and actually push those out to different areas of the business to help them achieve that productivity element as well. And typically, they would be responsible for that kind of governance element over the top as well. And the final audience on here, which may be a surprise to some people given some of the challenges that we spoke about at the top of the call, but if you think about professional developers, those people that are used to working in Visual Studio or other languages as well, what we can offer to those that audience is effectively a set of tools that helps them accelerate their development. So using that platform that helps them achieve basics very quickly, gives them a secure, scalable data storage, gives them a security model, workflow, business logic, a UI, to help deliver those capabilities very, very quickly, rather than starting with a blank sheet of paper, but also with the platform that actually helps them branch out into those professional development tools that they're used to working with as and when they need it. So that kind of no cliffs approach to being able to deliver using the Power Platform as well. If we switch now just to look at some of the use cases that we're hearing from some of our legal clients here. Obviously on the far left-hand side, we've got some kind of big rocks, if you like, that a lot of firms often look at. And typically these are addressed by a lot of our first-party apps in the Dynamics suite, or potentially through some of our ISVs in the space as well. But the other elements can be picked up by the Power Platform. So risk and compliance is a key one. Obviously, it's an important part of any firm. Perhaps doesn't always get the investment into the processes and the apps that perhaps client engagement might get. And it's a great area to look at the Power Platform for. So one of the big ones that keeps coming up, I've heard from a number of firms now, is this idea around the matter closure process. And actually, I've got an example of that, which we'll walk you through later today. Same approach around things like incident reporting, being able to capture and manage, risk to the firm in terms of data breaches. Does that need to be reported out to an independent statutory body? And also things like legal file reviews as well. All these kind of internal regulatory kind of housekeeping processes that today are often just managed off system, emails backwards and forwards within Outlook and the mailboxes, but also potentially Excel type solutions or even Word doc kind of checklists. Being able to platform those gives you the ability to do it digitally, have the visibility, but also learn from how well those processes are working. If we pick up a couple of the departmental one, request management and pro bono are quite high on the list that we hear as well. It's quite easy to provide a client-facing experience through this platform out to individuals to submit requests for example, pro bono work, and have those requests filtered into an internal app where your fee earners and other people in other roles around the firm might be able to identify requests that they're potentially a good fit for and actually are interested in committing some time to solving as well. And also for the last one I'll pick up on here is probably the two pillars there around finance and process efficiencies. Typically what we see is the ability or the need to automate processes of capturing data from kind of semi-structured or structured forms. So if you think about invoices that are coming in as attachments to emails or instruction forms that are coming in as well, today you've probably got humans picking up those emails, opening the attachment and then keying that in somewhere or doing something to push that process along. That's definitely an interest in terms of actually automating some of that capability to free up those individuals to actually do much more high value work for the firm as well. We'll come back to those use cases later on. I'll show you a few visuals around some of what we've delivered. But for now, I just want to kind of start to demystify a little bit for you around actually what the Power Platform is. So the four main components or kind of key components on here from left to right are Power BI, which hopefully many of you might already be familiar with. That's our business analytics and insights capability over the top of your data, allowing you to understand exactly how your process is or give you key insights about your business. Power Apps is our low-code app development capability. Power Automate for both what we would call digital process automation, using almost like a workflow type experience, but also now moving into robotic process automation as well. So where you've got processes which are very human heavy in terms of perhaps keying information into legacy platforms, or areas where you perhaps don't have an API to be able to integrate with, or the cost of doing so is prohibitive, you can actually record the tasks that the user's completing on their machine, save that as an automation workflow, and then repeat that as an automation, kind of freeing that individual up to do other work. The last one on the far right-hand side, I think Lucy touched on a potential example of this earlier, is our Power Virtual Agents capability, which is our low-code approach to intelligent agents, or chatbots, as you may know them as. So previously, this would have been very much in the pro development space, using things like the bot framework. We've brought that kind of barrier to entry down with this capability, where actually you can very quickly build out some chat experiences there. And then underneath, we've got these 3 capabilities that run across all those elements of the platform, and I'll touch on that over the next couple of slides. So on the far left, the low-code experience, you can see here that authoring experience in the background. This is what we would call a Canvas app. So these are typically consumed on kind of mobile devices or embedded into an experience like Microsoft Teams. So you can see an example there. We do have 2 other types. One would be what we would call a portal for kind of external-facing individuals, clients, etc. But also a model-driven app, which is kind of a slightly more advanced app that sits on top of the data store, probably with a much more structured business process and outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And again, we can light that up for you today. Power BI, I'm sure you're very familiar with, but really it's about, it's kind of our best-in-class capability around self-service analytics and helping you transform your data into insights and actually being able to share them with colleagues across any device, or even embedding that type of experience back into your apps and your team's working experiences as well. The low-code capability on the left for chatbots, that's the authoring experience then. And Lucy touched on the evergreen assistant this morning, so I won't spend too much time there. But again, on the far right-hand side, this is the authoring experience for our digital process automation. So being able to pick up a trigger, such as in this case, when a file lands in a folder, or potentially when an email lands in a mailbox, we want to take a set of automated steps to actually automate that process and remove that human interaction as well. There's a level of intelligence available on this platform as well. So using the power of kind of Microsoft research in your low-code tools, if you like. So we are a leader in the AI space. We've been breaking records in AI for a long time. Examples along the lines of voice to text translation. We've hit an accuracy level that is kind of on parity with humans. I think we hold the current award for that one. And typically, when these AI models come out of Microsoft research, they go first of all into Azure platform, where your pro development individuals can start to pick that up and build them into their own apps and their experiences. What we've now done is taken it up another level, where actually you're able to build those AI models through a very quick click and configure type experience into your low-code applications, but also your automations as well. So for example, can we teach one of these models to read the content of a completed form, so an invoice or an instruction, whether that's been completed digitally or by hand, or even kind of analyze images, identify objects and pieces that are inside it. And definitely one that we've seen in legal as well is picking up things like entities, key phrases from blocks of text as well. Final piece to call out here is the connectivity of this platform. So I've probably approached this today in quite a Microsoft-centric view of the world, but we absolutely recognise that not all your data is in one place. You've got solutions and applications from multiple vendors across your firms. And actually, this is where our connectivity into those platforms comes into play. So we've got about 450 now connectors into those first-party platforms. If you've got something unique or bespoke, it's very easy to build out a custom connector. But again, this can help you create an app that sits over the top of multiple sources internally, or even help you automate those processes that span multiple platforms that we spoke about earlier on today. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to rattle through a couple of use case examples that we've seen, and then I'll hand back to Nick. So risk and compliance is one that I called out at the top of the call. We've got 3 examples on here, actually. One around incident management, one about how GDPR requests, so subject access requests, are managed internally as well, and also that file review process. The incident management one we took was really about helping employees to quickly submit details of incidents like data breaches or bad practice or bad client experience that perhaps creates risk for a firm. And then creating an experience that helps the risk and compliance team actually manage that report through to investigation and closure as well. So we help them envision this sort of experience. This is one of those model-driven apps. So this could be run on a mobile device, within a browser, or again, embedded within Microsoft Teams. And what you can see here is that someone's very quickly able to open that up, submit the details of an incident, potentially upload supporting evidence like a document, or take a photo using some of the native capabilities on the device they're on, and actually submit that directly through to the risk and compliance team. Using some of the Power Automate capabilities here to actually just do some alerting and some approvals. So actually being able to ping out an alert to the risk and compliance team that a new high risk incident has been received and that you need to respond to that quite quickly. But then giving them an in-app experience that actually guides them through the process of picking up that incident, responding to it within the correct SLAs, performing the investigation analysis all the way through to closing that out. And then finally, from a KPI perspective, some dashboarding using that Power BI capability. So a couple of the firms we've worked with on this, they, at the end of each quarter, manually manipulate within the Excel spreadsheets that they've been capturing and running these processes in some of the KPIs so they can report them out to senior partners. In this case, we've used Power BI to give that live view of the data and those key KPIs so that they're available at any time. Nick, I've seen you've popped back on. Did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you, Ollie. It's a great insight. I'm sure the audience really appreciates it. And look, the popularity of the Power Platform and its ability to extend and expose, I think, new use cases is a hot topic for us all at the moment. Look, I'm conscious of time, and I know that we've slightly overrun, so I'd like to open the floor. Look, we'll take any questions to any of the speakers, or any of us. In fact, we're happy to answer any questions. Please don't forget to unmute your microphone if you want to answer a question, and we'll please take any. Any questions from the floor? Don't be shy. Well, we're not going to force you, so don't worry, but we're always here to answer any offline later at any time at your leisure. So look, let me just hand back to Jamie, who will just quickly wrap us up at the end of this series. Over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. Again, hopefully you found the session really useful today. I'd like to thank you all for joining. If you've joined this session or indeed the series, I hope you found it insightful, and I'd like to thank all of our guest speakers, including Phil Fisher, who've joined us on this journey. Looking at the benefits of the cloud-led technology, we've delivered the connected field service, and hopefully today ratified how Power Platform can help you accelerate. I know we weren't able to actually meet in person as much as we'd like to, so we'd like to offer you a breakfast on us, and the team will send through some details to you shortly. And finally, Microsoft and sa.global, hopefully what we've demonstrated today, we are absolutely committed to supporting legal firms on their digital transformation, and with the evergreen legal layer, hopefully you can see the added capabilities that sa.global bring. As part of this exercise, what we are offering is a business value assessment where we can help you identify what is the incremental value in terms of delivering a solution or part of this solution in terms of your organization, or indeed funding a proof of concept with you so we can help you prove out maybe some specific use cases or challenges that you've got in your business right now. So we will be in touch with those details, and we'd love the opportunity to partner with you on that journey, indeed, if that's something you'd like to consider. So we will be in touch with those details, along with a digital goodie bag with all the free sessions in terms of the content and some of the insights that we've shared on that journey. So finally, thank you to everyone. Apologies we've run into time today. I'd like to wish you all a good day. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.